All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Feminine and Masculine Magic free masterclass. I am Rachel Jackson. I am a trained therapist turned guide, and I'm really passionate about speaking about the masculine and the feminine and how to find balance internally within yourself, as well as utilizing this balance to attract aligned relationship, friendship, co-working relationships, or maintain the passion in your current relationship. So before we really dive in, I'd love for you to take out a pen and a piece of paper and write down the first few words that come to mind when you think of feminine and the first few words that come to mind when you think of masculine. And I will give you a few moments to write those down. And now that you are a little bit mentally prepped for diving into all this content, let's drop into our bodies so that you can release whatever you have experienced thus far today, or this week, or this month, or maybe even this year, and allow yourself some time to ground. And so that you can be fully present and soak up as much information that is of service to you throughout this next hour. So I invite you to get comfortable and maybe even close down your eyes or soften your gaze. And without changing anything yet, just notice your body, your breath, and your current state of being. And notice if one word may come to mind to describe how you currently feel. And now begin to deepen your breath and maybe even move your body a little bit, becoming more present in it, rolling out your neck, rolling your shoulders up and down your back, finding some barrel rolls in your chest, or opening and closing your hands. And then find stillness if it feels accessible to you. We'll take one cleansing breath, deep, full breath in through your nose, fill up. And open mouth, exhale, let it be cleansing. Breathe in, I am present. Breathe out all of the mental chatter. Breathe in, I choose presence. Breathe out, I release anything that does not serve me. I'll give you a few moments to be in stillness and imagine harmony and balance within your body, within your mind, within your spirit. Imagine this balance between your being and your doing, and this harmonious balance and flow between your head and your heart. Again, we'll take one more breath with the affirmation, I am present, starting with an exhale out through your mouth. As you inhale in, make it steady and slow. Hold your breath at the top. Maybe even take your chin to your chest to seal in whatever you want to keep. And then pop the cork, exhale. Let everything else go. And before you open your eyes, find some awareness of anything that you sense in your physical space or anything you sense in your physical body as you begin to slowly begin moving your extremities, moving your wrists, moving your shoulders up towards your ears, down your back, and becoming more aware before you open your eyes. And we begin. Thank you for doing that. It's always helpful to ground down a little bit before we get started. So Again, what is feminine and masculine? In this presentation today, we are going to move a little bit closer to end inner separation and create genuine opening for new, fulfilling, and balanced love, self-love, and love within our relationships. So again, this is really about an inner separation, and we are working towards creating more unity today. So the agenda and what we are moving through. First, we're going to establish some goals and intentions for the next hour and the weeks and months to come. We are going to define feminine and masculine in the healthy versions and the wounded versions. We are going to explore our relationships with ourselves, identify wounds and blocks, talk about how to attract aligned relationship through a sense of worthiness, evaluate our current relationships, explore the progression and the science, the therapeutic lens behind what relationships are and how they progress over time, talk about societal pressures and gender roles that impact these feminine and masculine energies, and then how to really implement the magic. So as we dive in, again, my goal for this masterclass is to really heal our feminine and our masculine so that we can feel more at peace in our relationships with ourselves and find aligned relationships and then really maintain the passion in our current one. So again, I will talk about how there is a honeymoon stage at the beginning of a relationship, and by using the balance of the masculine and the feminine internally within all of us as individuals, we can maintain more fulfillment and passion in our lives and in our relationships. So I would love for you to take a moment to write down what your one word, what your one intention is for the next hour or in this implementation, and maybe a specific goal that you may have in your feminine and your masculine balance. So again, to go a little bit deeper into your journaling and writing down these intentions and these goals. Again, what do you hope to get out of this masterclass? Maybe that was in your intention and your goal. But first and foremost, really to dive a little bit deeper into this, what is your relationship with your femininity? And what is your relationship with your masculinity? Take a moment to write down what you feel like these relationships are. How strong are they? Where do you struggle? And you can always come back to these questions later on to further in your processing. For me personally, I see a big difference between my relationship with my feminine and my masculine due to my upbringing and due to how I feel worthy in the world or how I learned to get my needs met. And so we will talk more about this as the presentation and masterclass goes on. But just notice how your relationship with these two different energies really differs and how it shows up for you. So let's dive into the juicy part. This is going to be your favorite slide, I think, probably of this presentation. The healthy feminine. It is allowing. All right. The feminine is more about sitting back, receiving, allowing, birthing into creation, right? Sometimes physically birthing children, being in flow, being intuitive, being one with nature, and being really nurturing. Okay, right? There's this nurturing energy to the feminine energy. It doesn't mean a mother, it doesn't mean a actual female, because both males and females, doesn't matter what gender you identify with, you can have feminine energy. All right, there is an energy of being versus doing in the healthy feminine. There is a receiving energy, again, a creative energy, an intuitive energy, The healthy feminine asks for their needs to be met. They are vulnerable. They are compassionate to themselves and others. They have a healthy sense of independence, high levels of self-respect, and they are secure. There's a lot of trust here, right? The wounded feminine shows up in a different way. The wounded feminine can show up manipulative and insecure. Victimhood is something that they lean on. They may blame others for their situations, blame others for their reasons for not being financially secure or being alone or feeling stuck in a certain area of their life. Okay. They are self-sacrificing at times. They sacrifice themselves or they people please a lot to put others before themselves. They have a lot of waiting energy. I will be happy when, okay? There's a lot of waiting on external factors versus taking power into their own hands. There are no boundaries for the wounded feminine. They seek external validation. There may be high levels of shame and guilt. They over apologize and say, I'm sorry first in order to keep harmony and peace. They can be codependent, have high levels of comparison, really sink into imposter syndrome and self-doubt, having a hard time really putting themselves in a place of power, again, of healthy power, of trusting themselves. There may be high levels of self-questioning, difficulty receiving love, difficulty receiving pleasure, again, is hard. This is really hard for the wounded feminine. And then to move into the masculine, the healthy masculine plans. It's more in the doing phase, all right? So feminine is more receiving, sitting back, allowing. The masculine is like, I'm going to do it myself in a healthy way. I'm going to plan, I'm going to speak. I'm action oriented. Again, this doing, there's a providing energy for the healthy masculine. Again, healthy sense of providing out of desire, out of strength, out of love, right? There's a lot of love in the healthy masculine. They want to build, they are logical, they communicate really openly, they are still very vulnerable, they are assertive, they want to get stuff done out of love. They are flexible, they responsibly use their power. There's a healthy sense of sexuality and wanting to love and wanting to be loved. And again, they are trusting. Trust is really important for both of these healthy expressions of these energies. The wounded masculine looks different, right? The wounded masculine shows dominance and they can come off controlling. There is an abuse of power. They may withdraw and ignore out of discomfort. Again, they really may abuse power, be controlling, or be dominant because they feel a void within themselves. Maybe they don't feel good enough and they don't get their needs met. They can be possessive. Oftentimes, the wounded masculine can be addicted to porn because of this unhealthy sense of sexuality and this need to, again, get stimulation, this need to feel excited, this need to be loved and feel this human connection that they're maybe missing. They can show a sense of aggressiveness, being stuck in the mind, overly critical, emotionally unavailable, neglecting of self-care, and high levels of competitiveness or really attachment to needing to be competitive to feel enough. So again, this is the healthy feminine, the healthy masculine, the wounded masculine, and the wounded feminine. These are how these energies show up. And again, it is not gendered. So come back to this slide, use it as your holy grail, and explore how do these energies show up for you. Maybe you take a moment here and you look at these lists and say, what healthy qualities do I have and what wounded qualities do I have in each of these lists? Moving forward. Again, I will hone in. Feminine and masculine energies are not based on gender. All people need a balance of these energies in order to feel whole internally within themselves and live their most optimal expression of life. And so there needs to be the being and the doing, the head and the heart, the action, the planning, but also the sitting back, the allowing, the nurturing. So again, we need it all in order to be whole within ourselves. So let's talk a little bit more about our individuality. So again, because this is not gendered, I don't want you to label this as male or female. Male or female is not masculine or feminine, all right? So let's hone that in. It is not based on gender. It is simply an energy, right? So an energy is also just like an emotion. It's just like an expression. So these are expressions of the self. This is an expression of the soul. This is our way to move through life. And in order for us to move through life with more ease and more alignment, that means we have balance between the masculine and the feminine. I will emphasize, we as human beings are driven by values, and we're driven by what I always like to say is what it means to be innately human. And that means we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to have a sense of belonging. We all deserve to be loved, and we need to feel a sense of purpose and accomplishment as well. And so we will utilize these energies to try to get these needs met in this middle paragraph. This is where the wounded energies show up, is when we've learned that it's hard to get these needs met. So we heavily move into these wounded characteristics because these energies are blocked, because the healthy expressions didn't work for us or our needs weren't met by only living in these healthy expressions, or our caregivers, our parents, the people around us as role models, as children, expressed these energies through maybe a wounded lens. And so we learned them, okay? We will do anything to get these needs met, these innate human needs. We hyper focus on getting these needs met because when these needs are met, we feel safe. When these needs are not met, we do not feel safe. And so we're going to try to find the most comfort as human beings. That is how we work. We deserve to feel comfortable moving through this life, but we also need to be loved, be seen, be heard, be understood, have a sense of belonging. And so this leads us to have this imbalance, and this leads us to leaning on different parts of our femininity or our masculinity more, and ultimately leads us to feeling a sense of uncertainty or fatigue or depletion. And so we begin to operate from the wounded parts of self again to get these needs met. So really start asking yourself, how do I operate here? What is my individual relationship with these energies? Again, it all comes down to, I am a firm believer about the inner child, and it all comes down to these inner child wounds and blocks. And so our inner child is really the entry point to understanding how we have learned these energies. And so as a child, we are a sponge. Okay. I want you to imagine back to, I mean, you can't remember this probably, but when you're a child and you couldn't speak yet, and you are just witnessing the world. You are learning, how are my parents interacting? How are my caregivers interacting? If I had siblings, how are they getting attention? How are they receiving love? What do they do in order to be seen? What makes them feel belonging? We are taking in the world. We are being pushed in our strollers or strapped to a parent, and we are saying, okay, what feels good? What feels bad? What makes me feel safe? What doesn't make me feel safe? Okay. So we're taking in the world and we're trying to make sense of it. How does this world work? And when we can't question it, we're just witnessing, we're just taking in, and we're feeling these energies. We're very in tune with these masculine and feminine energies as children. But when we're feeling blocked, it's because we, as children, again, not just when we couldn't speak, but somewhere along the line between, 0 and 7 is the biggest ages of development. And again, you don't fully develop till your 20s, your 30s, whatever it may be. The prefrontal cortex, we all know that. We are trying to figure out what is true about the world. We're creating a story. And so the mind works in absolutes oftentimes we get to challenge that, but we deem absolute truths based on what we witnessed. And we need to deconstruct those stories in order to find balance between our masculine and our feminine, because our inner child really needs that. The inner child needs that deconstruction in order to find a new safety, because we've outdated our childhoods by now, right? We are living a new reality. We probably don't live with our parents, or we have different people around us, or the situations just simply aren't the same. And so we get to challenge what made us feel safe as children. We get to uphold or take on or live in different energies. It doesn't need to be from the wounded lens of trying to get these needs met in the same way we needed to get these needs met by our parents. Because again, ideally, we're living in a new reality. So ask yourself, do you want to live in the same reality you did as a kid, or do you want to evolve into something new so that you can manifest new relationships or find more fulfillment in your current one? So again, because of these blocks that we built as children, we energetically wall ourselves off. We're protecting ourselves. Again, we're trying to find the most comfort. We're going to say, how can I get love in the world? Maybe I got love because of my achievement. Maybe I got love and attention because of my body or my sexuality. Maybe I got love based on keeping my mouth shut. Maybe I got love based on expressing myself. Whatever it may be, again, we create our reality. This is how I get my needs met. Our blocks mean well. All right, they're trying to protect us. So love them. Say thank you for trying to support me. I can rewrite you now. I may not need to live by you any longer. Maybe I can create a new story. They're probably holding you back from creating this new reality of flow, right? Of ease, of less anxiety, of more abundance that we're wanting. They're keeping us imprisoned in the old reality because it's the mind is trying to protect us. So thank you, mind. Yes, we need the protection at times, but oftentimes the path to healing means questioning that reality, sometimes questioning that old reality. So within all of this, the inner child often becomes suppressed because we say, my childhood was good. And, that was so long ago, I don't even remember, right? We often don't even remember. And so we oppress and we abandon that inner child and we say, that is not my reality any longer. But subconsciously, it's very present. So when we abandon that part of ourselves because we are told to become mature and realistic, and there's a point of our lives where we don't play anymore and we just become an adult, or we're encouraged to become an adult. And so within the American Western culture, there is a loss of femininity often and a focus on masculinity. And so we lose this playful flow of the feminine, this nurturing of ourselves, this compassion towards ourselves, this allowing ourselves to be and trust and receive. And we can fall into the rigidity of logic, achievement, action, doing, proving ourselves. And that can lead to a lot of wounded, unhealthy expressions, okay? Because we do need both. And so, again, it all depends on what was your reality growing up and the life that you've lived. But we either attract the energies that reflect our inner beliefs. So either we recreate our past based on what we learned, or we try our darndest to challenge and test those beliefs. So it's kind of similar to what we say of like, we either replicate the relationship our parents or caregivers maybe had, or we try to create the exact opposite. All right. We either are similar to our mother or father or caregivers, or we try to be the opposite of them. Okay. We either attract these energies or we challenge them. And it's important to recognize and validate where they may come from. So Attracting aligned and healthy relationships. It all comes down to three different parts. And the first is self-beliefs. What are your beliefs? Your beliefs are going to impact what you attract into your life because how you feel about yourself will be a reflection of what you get in the world, because it is really important how we speak to ourselves. It is really important the stories we tell ourselves. So if you want to create a new life, if you want different relationships in your life, it all comes down first to, what do I believe about the world? What do I believe I have access to? So if we subconsciously believe that femininity is weak, we're going to attract spaces where we cannot be soft because we don't believe that that's welcome. Okay. If we subconsciously believe that our worthiness comes from what we achieve, we'll likely block ourselves off from receiving love because we're so in the masculine. And maybe it was never safe for us to receive love, or it wasn't given to us freely. If we subconsciously believe that action is toxic, because maybe a parent was a workaholic, we're going to attract sometimes people that lack drive, or people that are maybe even hyper fixated on action and makes us feel yucky. So what we believe is going to be what we attract. So what do you believe about the world? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about relationships? Deconstruct that. It's going to be super, super important. Our environments are really key in attracting aligned relationship. There's that quote that you are a reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time around. It's also like, what are we attracting in our lives? What do we believe we're worthy of? If we're spending time around an energy that doesn't inspire us, we're probably not growing. And so the spaces that we put ourselves in will reflect what we feel like we're worthy of. If you believe your voice will not be heard, you're going to attract environments that speak over you or don't want to hear your voice, don't respect your voice. If you believe that your depth will not be received, you're going to attract surface level environments that keep you in that reality and maybe unfulfilled. And if you believe that you have to lead in order to be loved, you're going to attract environments where you caretake and aren't taken care of. All right. So it is important here. You're going to start seeing to find this balance. What you believe needs to be rooted in both feminine and masculine. And so looking at that healthy masculine and feminine list is going to support you of like, what characteristics do I want to take on in my belief systems? And finally, worthiness and vibration. Our worthiness is really everything. Our worthiness is everything. And it is going to impact the emotional experiences we have and the simply just like actual experiences that we bring into our world. Vibration is everything. Sound is one of the most effective ways to communicate because we can't fully describe everything through even words, right? Like there is a vibration, there is an energy to everything in our world. So if you believe your worthiness best lives in staying small, you're going to hold tension in your body. You're going to physically, vibrationally feel that compression. And that might even show up as physical pain. Your emotions are energy in motion. So if you believe that you have to hold it all together, your vibration's going to remain stuck at that lower level, that base level, because you're compressing yourself, right? You're not allowing that emotion to move through you. And if you believe life and success is always hard work, you're going to feel the vibrations of like force and push and chasing to reflect that belief. And it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel in flow. It's going to feel hard. It's going to feel physically, vibrationally hard in your body. You're going to probably build more physical tension in your body. So starting to move into our relationships, I utilize this technique that I built called the Venn diagram. Okay. And the Venn diagram really harnesses this belief that we are individuals first. I describe this as we are 2 circles. Okay. I am whole, you are whole, ideally. Being whole means you are balanced in your feminine and your masculine. Being whole means that we know that we're worthy of being both and that it is acceptable to be both. And so it is first and foremost important to attract aligned relationships, to find this healthy sense within ourselves and find this worthiness to be and do, to have our head and our heart both speak to us. And if we lose passion in our relationships, it's probably because we are misaligned within ourselves. And so we need to keep this personal experience in check. We need to prioritize our own individual self-care so that we can pour into our relationships from this healthy space versus a wounded space versus in a cup half full space. We have to have it be a cup that's overflowing. Okay. So we're going to experience tension in our relationships because of this imbalance. And we are only going to go as far in our relationships as we're willing to go with ourselves. Your partner is only going to go as far with you. You cannot pull them, you cannot change them unless they're willing to go to those places within themselves. So you have to give and receive. You have to honor everybody's process in working through these energetic imbalances, but we have to tune into our own head and our own heart before we can give from our heart to our partner and plan a future as a team. So notice if you feel like you have imbalance in your relationship. Notice if you feel a lack of passion. Notice if you feel like one person is doing quote unquote the heavy lifting. I hear that a lot with my couples. If that's the case, try to not force all of the change to be on the relationship and say, how can we tune into ourselves and find more balance first? Because that is going to breed a lot more compassion towards each other and a lot more effective success in these changes. So as we move forward, again, there are different phases to relationships, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, or the now, right? The today. And so in the beginning, we typically feel this honeymoon phase, right? And the honeymoon phase is the feminine and masculine balance. It has more giving and receiving. There's maybe more passion, more future excitement, more intimacy. Maybe differences are seen as a learning experience. There's more admiration. And I will caveat this with, at the beginning of a relationship, sometimes there's more insecurities that bubble up. However, usually there's more give and take before more comfort is built. And so there can be a bigger balance between giving and receiving at the beginning phase. So I want you to take a moment and reflect on what qualities do you see at the beginning of your relationships that you think tend to shift, dissolve, or transform over time. So you can take out your journal and take a moment to reflect on that. In order to break out of this lack of the honeymoon phase, the lack of passion, it's important to challenge the sense of norms that you've created, the roles that you've stepped into, and start to bring more of that feminine and masculine balance in, giving and receiving, challenging the roles, maybe switching up who does what, and really create this stark shift in the relationship. It's kind of described within the therapy-ish world that, like, over time, the snow globe settles, right? And in order to create change, we got to shake things up. We got to totally create this new environment. Maybe you're completely switching snow globes, or you're again shaking up the dust so that it can settle in a new way. And we need that change. We need that shift. So after homeostasis is built, again, those norms, those roles, those expectations are quote unquote solidified, and they can go unsaid, right? Like you find this way of grooving with each other. And so we can sometimes lose our sense of individuality. The Venn diagram becomes two overlapping circles in this phase. Not always, but sometimes relationships do this in order to feel connected, out of fear that doing this will mean that there isn't love or there may be abandonment. Again, that's the merging, or we become really, 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 really separate. And we distance ourselves out of need to maintain individuality. Again, that's the Venn diagram of relationships, but we need this healthy overlap of both people being a whole person, having their own individuality, but also having a beautiful overlap where you work better together and you share with each other. So again, in order to really shift things, we have to question our sense of homeostasis, and we need to make the expectations that have gone unsaid more said. We need to name, hey, I think I want to change this, dynamic that we've fell into. Can we shift this pattern together? Are you open to that? What would that look like? Can we just communicate more? Again, it all comes down to just naming things more often, saying, I think we have some room to change. So what norms do you find during the middle of relationships once you're comfortable and in a routine with each other? What do you sense in yourself? What tendencies do you fall into? I'll give you a moment to journal on that. Again, you can always come back to these questions as well to further in your journaling. And I'm also sending over a free workbook to dive into how to find more balance here and identify more of the wounds or the blocks. Finally, today you have an opportunity to rewrite and realign to get back into balance. It requires you to be vulnerable and really meet each other again, right? So whatever version of yourselves you were at the beginning, it's likely that you're different now. We change over time, we evolve over time. To be in conscious relationship means to be alongside each other, a friend, a partner in that evolution, and commit to seeing each other as a new version of ourselves every day. And so step back, see yourself from the bird's eye view and say, how can we see each other now differently than how we were maybe at the beginning of this relationship? It is really important to start your relationship with the healthy version of self, but it's not always the case, right? We're all moving through our own healing processes at different speeds and in different ways, and it's never done. And so we're constantly having a new opportunity to meet ourselves, meet our partners, meet our friends, meet the people in our lives in new ways. And so it's a constant recommitment to finding more balance and to giving and receiving the way that maybe works for us best at this version of ourselves. So what attributes do you feel ready to reclaim in yourself, in your feminine, in your masculine, to create anew so that your relationship honors not only yourself, but both of you, to restore that harmonious balance between your masculine and feminine? So maybe what parts of your masculine and feminine have been suppressed? Write that down, get really clear with it so that you can set a goal around restoring more balance. I'll give you a moment to write these down. All right, as we move forward, I'd love to talk about the relational polarization pattern. This is something I don't think that's talked about much, but is one of my favorite things to hone in on in couples work or relational work, is that at the beginning phase of a relationship, there's much more ease and again, more similarities. There's often seen most relationships are seen as more similar at the beginning. You see a lot more overlap in your circles maybe, and you see a closer sense of selves. And over time, again, we often want to polarize our viewpoints, polarize our actions, polarize our habits to again maintain a sense of individuality. And so just notice if you've polarized with a partner. Again, this happens in that middle phase of a relationship, and it's unfortunate because it often creates more distance. And so one person may become more logical and one more person may become more emotional. One person may be more doing oriented, one more person may be more being oriented. One person may start to shift their even their like political beliefs or how they approach their physical wellness or how they approach their emotional wellness, and the other person may take a different stance because there's this like fierce desire to not again lose ourselves. Not everyone does this. Again, as I mentioned, some relationships do the opposite. That's usually a very anxious attachment experience where the circles merge and it's out of fear of abandonment. But the ideal scenario is to not distance, right? You want to share passions with your partner. The ideal scenario is to give and take. The line is not linear. There is a fluid motion for each circle to come to the middle and kind of like give and take, right? So imagine even that both of these circles were feminine and masculine. Within ourselves, we want to do this, right? We want to be in flow, feminine and masculine, feminine and masculine. There may be phases and seasons of our lives where we lean into our masculine more or lean into our feminine more. So in relationships, that's something that you can talk about with your partner. How can we balance this out? If I'm more in a masculine phase, how can you nurture me in that? If you're more in a feminine phase, how can I be more masculine and support you, provide safety for you in that? So this is the beautiful dance of relationship within ourselves and within, again, intimate friendship or familial relationship. So think about how your relationships maybe have polarized over time. Why have you taken these polarizing stances? And can you start to do this dance again and remind yourself of your similarities? So it's really important for me to touch on societal conditioning and societal pressures. Society creates pressures, and we have a lot of mixed messages. We have a lot of messages that are conscious and subconscious that are written on billboards or just covertly communicated through body language or history, right? And so it's up to us to challenge why. Why do I feel like I need to be a certain way? Why do I feel like I have to dress a certain way? Why do I feel like I need to make a certain amount of money, or this is the way to make money? Why do I feel like I need a certain title, or that I'm supposed to be at a certain phase of my life because I'm at X age? All right. Why do I feel like I need to present my emotions a certain way? And so we wonder why these energies are really imbalanced. It's because we take in these messages as those absolute truths. And they don't have to be absolute truths. It can be a truth for somebody else, but is it your truth? You get to decide. So these mixed messages are everywhere. And notice which parts of the mixed messages you listen to more and why. And maybe you can find more balance in creating your own message, your own story, because, excuse me, I am really passionate, as many people may know if you've listened to my podcast. It's called Unboxed. And I believe society has created a lot of limitations on us that box us, that layer us, that tell us to be a certain way, that disconnect us from our heart, that disconnect us from our authenticity, because all of our authenticity is different. All of our highest version of self is going to look different. That's the beauty of our world, that we're all this mosaic of different expressions of being human, but we need to sink into what's true for us versus a message of what somebody told us to be along the line. And similar to this, again, there's a lot of gender role pressures. Gender roles, again, are a way to box us into a way that has been deemed acceptable. And so again, this feminine and masculine conversation is not about gender, it's about energy, but we've associated and we've pinpointed that females, if we're going to gender it, should be more feminine and males should be more masculine, and that's not true. And so gender roles are really based in that of men should operate this way in a relationship. They should pay the bill, they should be the provider. Females should be the nurturer, be the caretaker, be the home take or whatever the word is, right? And it's definitely being challenged in our world, right? Like we're really coming a long way with challenging gender roles, but they're still sometimes like under the surface, and we're doing better. The world is changing. We're all becoming more critical in a positive way of like, we can rewrite this. Maybe the way that society has been operating doesn't need to be this way anymore, but it's important for us to question our tendency to polarize into gender, and as individuals and in our relationship really say what feels true to me. And so curiosity and discernment are what I believe to be your two greatest tools to really say, can I get curious about how I show up? Can I get curious about what messages I'm believing? And can I be discerning of if these feel true to me? Do these feel true to me? Does this feel good in my body? Does this feel aligned with my best expression of myself and where I feel the most aligned, the most authentic, the most me, the most free? Again, walking towards the discomfort in our own embodiment of masculine and feminine is our entry point to freedom and fulfillment. So if you go back to that first list, notice what qualities feel the most uncomfortable to you, right? Like, I don't know if it was even on there, but there's a sensuality and a sexuality to the femininity. Maybe you feel uncomfortable with that. Walk towards that discomfort, explore it. That is your entry point to more freedom and fulfillment. If you're feeling discomfort with being a provider or just even doing, notice where your discomfort is in that. Maybe it's a glass ceiling with how much money you're making or how much effort you want to put it into work, or maybe this imbalance between how you approach work. Walking towards your discomfort is your entry point to freedom. Get uncomfortable, get outside your comfort zone. That's your place where you're going to notice your blocks. So where you feel judgmental, where you feel resistant is where your block is. All right. Mic drop, listen to that, replay it on repeat. Walking towards the discomfort of your own embodiment is your entry point. There's a separation here. We're working towards unity, all right? It's the separation between the head and the heart. So the heart loves, the heart lives, the heart flows, it feels, it simplifies, and it softens, while the head protects, it plans, it analyzes, it acts, it intellectualizes, and intensifies. Both are needed. Both are needed. However, we usually say that the head and the heart are in battle. They do not need to be in battle. If the heart is leading, the head is following with its protection, with its plans, with its analytical nature, with its action. But we can't lean too heavily into either, okay? If the heart only led, maybe it would be so like there would be no boundary, right? And that's not healthy either, right? We need both. We need to have the softness, we need to have the intensity. Again, it's the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is the heart, the masculine is the head. We don't need to be at war anymore. We do not need to separate. And if we stop abandoning one or the other through fear of what might happen, we will find freedom. So where are you separating? Take a moment to reflect on, where am I separating? Where am I saying it's not okay to be in my heart? Where am I saying it's not okay to be in my head? Where do I lean too heavily on one or the other? And how can I find more balance and give myself more grace? How can I stop abandoning myself and put myself first and know I'm worthy of that? This is honestly one of my favorite journal questions to ask yourself more frequently as well, because we naturally will separate out of discomfort on a daily basis. So it's great to challenge this. In the interest of time, I'm going to go to the next slide, and you can always come back. Again, these are the signs of separation that I see in our world. Overthinking, heightened sense of overthinking, heightened or extended confusion in the mind, heightened self-criticism, lacking a belief in yourself, right? Hyper asking for advice, putting the belief in everyone else and not in yourself, right? That is a sign of separation. Hyper deep independence, hyper independence is a disconnection from the heart. It is a lack of trust in ourselves. It is a hyper fixation on the masculine of I need to do it on my own, I cannot receive love, or hyper dependence of like I need to get as much love as I can get. Okay, disconnection from self, hyper fixation on things, a lot of self questioning. Being a workaholic is a disconnection from the heart. Social anxiety, again, I say this with a grain of salt because it's natural in some ways, but we want to be able to feel secure in ourselves. Again, in that healthy masculine and feminine, there's that security. And so heightened levels of social anxiety is putting the power outside of ourselves, fearing judgment. All right, prolonged experiences of anger, high levels of numbness or addiction. This is obviously seen highly in our world of going to our phones or using alcohol or drugs or numbing through food or exercise. That is a sign of separation or a imbalance in the masculine and feminine. People pleasing, lots of people pleasing is a huge sign of separation. Narcissism, high levels of judgment, high levels of isolation, lots of experiences of gossip, putting the focus on other people or something outside of ourselves versus keeping the conversation internal or between what's happening in your life, what's happening in my life, right? We want to externalize out of discomfort. High levels of depletion, rumination, inaction or freezing or physical pain in the body. Those are all signs of inner separation in these energies. So again, ask yourself, what do you notice in yourself or in others around you? What signs of separation stand out to you? And what forms of separation have you or we as a society normalized? Take a moment to reflect on that. All right, moving forward, the steps to integrating the masculine and the feminine, right? There's 5 different steps that I've identified. These are near and dear to my heart in any therapeutic or healing modality. First step is awareness. If you don't see it, you won't be able to change it. All right. If you're not going to get honest with yourself, then you're fearing yourself. You're hiding from yourself. So, first step is awareness. How do these energies show up? What characteristics do you lack? Giving yourself permission to be, and where do you feel rejected or closed off in your own body? You have to build awareness of yourself every day, every week, every month, every year. It's going to look different as we evolve, as we change. So if we can check in with ourselves more, we heighten our awareness and we become better versions of ourselves because we get to move to step 2 then, which is acceptance. This is a step I think most people miss. They have the awareness and then they try to move to action. We got to go into acceptance first. We actually are still separating from ourselves if we're not going into this validation stage of acceptance. So, how can you show yourself compassion? How can you understand where these wounds or blocks come from in the awareness step and say, oh, I really understand why though, and I can hold myself gently for that being present for me. What parts of you have you abandoned out of fear of rejection or fear of judgment? And where can you accept those faults and validate your strengths? Accept where it's come from and validate that you get to create something new and hold yourself gently in the pain. And then you can go to step 3 being action. Okay. Action is really how we break up the discomfort, how we shake the snow globe. What actions can you take that would scare you and challenge you? Again, go back to that list and say, I'm going to start there. I'm going to get into the discomfort. And then that's really where we can step outside of our comfort zone, not by going from 0 to 100, but by taking a step-by-step process of getting more comfortable. And so that means that we're doing it safely. It's feeling a little bit safer in our nervous system every time we take a step towards more change in these energies. Step 4 is attraction. We get to start attracting new things because our beliefs are different, because through new action, we've realized that it can be different. All right. And so we can embody new worthiness. How can you embody your worthiness? How can these manifestations start to show and present your new sense of worth? What would be the signs of that? where would your life begin to change, and where can you expose yourself to new environments? That's also going to put you in a more attractive state of being. If you are getting outside your comfort zone and reflecting your worthiness in the kind of environments you're in. And that leads us to alignment. Step 5. How can you rewrite the story? What does this alignment look and feel like? Again, what does it feel like in your body is more important than what it looks like. The universe is going to have it look probably different than we imagine it in our minds, but the alignment really is fully embodying that new sense of worth. And it is an alignment between our inner and our outer worlds, our inner visions and our outer visions. Okay, so align with yourself, find balance between the masculine and the feminine. First, find awareness, then move into acceptance. Find some areas to take action to break up the old. You will start attracting the new and stepping into a new sense of homeostasis, a new sense of alignment. So again, the feminine and the masculine practices, these are a few practices that I would encourage for the masculine and the feminine. And you can always come back to these if you're needing some suggestions on how to start embodying a part of you that feels more suppressed. So if you're feeling like you need to work on your feminine, go to this list. If you're feeling like you need to work on your masculine, go to this list. Maybe you just need something new on a certain day and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, where's a place that I could, work on exploring and expressing these energies? Come back to this list where you can start to work with these energies in a new way, or find more balance and harmony that specific day. So as we begin to wrap up, these again are the next steps that I encourage you. You will receive the workbook and you get to start confronting your wounded parts. You get to dive into frequently, however frequently you want to come back to this and say, what parts of me are not expressing myself fully, because we will heal and then another wounded part may show up just as life continues to go on. And so we can begin to eliminate the separation with compassion first. Self-compassion is so important, so important. So eliminate that separation by finding unity through compassion. Encourage yourself to express yourself fully, even when you're wanting to start shrinking. Say, I'm going to choose to show up as myself. I'm going to be present in both of these energies. I'm going to believe in myself and in my power and in my innate deservingness of being seen, being heard, being understood, and belonging. Communicate where you feel blocked and resistant with somebody else. All right. When you get it out of your system, you learn that you don't have to be alone and you can have somebody else hold you accountable and be a support system for you. By naming it, you again have the awareness in an even more powerful way than just leaving it in your mind. Continue on the path of self-exploration. You deserve it. It's going to be your path to freedom continuously, and support others without judgment in their pursuits as well. We're all on different paths at different phases, and just honor that everyone's just walking their own path, and hopefully we can support each other on walking home to our innate self and to our best version of self. So thank you for being here, ending just right on time. And any of you that are receiving this masterclass, I want to give you a free, or a special rather, a little discount. If you watch this, I'm giving you a discount to my couples course, $199 off right now. If it changes at some point, you'll be provided a different promo code, but it is typically $444, which is $25 a week. But with this $199 off, it is $245 for an 18-week couples course with tons of resources and self-guided sessions. So that will make it $13 per week. And the promo code is Masterclass 199 off. All right, so use that at checkout. You can use this QR code to get to the not the masterclass, to the program and learn a little bit more about it. This course again is filled with weekly tools on communication, trust, intimacy, and sex life, and how to find more of this balance between masculine and feminine, and any imbalance you have in your relationship. I have an amazing tool that I've created that is profound in addressing the process level of how to break free of our patterns and relationships. It's recommended that you schedule a few intensives with me to work through the program if it's supportive to you. So again, put in the promo code when you scan this QR code and get your relationship course. It's called Realign Your Relationship. It's amazing. And next, again, as you see this, I've probably already launched my free community. It launches on August 8th, 2024. It's my passion, and I believe it's the mission of Guide to Be to provide a place for all of us to connect as human beings. Just because I have my master's in marriage and family therapy, am not less human than you. I experience these challenges as well within my own self and my own healing and in my relationship. So, if this masterclass really spoke to you, feel free to scan the QR code and to donate. But otherwise, even in this free community, I would love for you to join. If you join, you'll get a free purpose planner to plan out your days, your weeks, your months, your years, and move through the blocks that you have in your own holistic healing. Again, this is an online community to reconnect back to your innate self. It's called Innate, a free community by Guide to Be. Use the code again to donate, but come to my website to get the entry to join the free community. It's amazing. There's weekly free meditations, monthly group calls, lots of spaces to network and talk about different healing modalities. Each month is going to be a different theme, and each week will be a subgroup or a sub theme to work through that piece of healing. So it's all going to be lots of free resources and coursework and spaces, journal prompts to be each other's mirrors and to support each other, cheerlead each other in our challenges and our victories. So enjoy the workbook, and thank you for being here. Sending all of you lots of love. I hope you find more balance in your masculine and your femininity, and I hope to connect with all of you soon in any way, shape, or form, whether through a course, another free masterclass, or within the community. Maybe you come to my podcast and leave a review. We connect that way, or schedule a free consultation with me. Again, I'm Rachel Jackson. Thank you for being here, and hopefully I will see you all soon.